This morning we're wrapping up a series of sermons that I've been doing on the great story of the birth of the storyteller. We've been looking about these stories that are brought to us from beyond this world, that has come to us to be stories to change our hearts. You know, if you really want to change a heart, and I've pointed this out over and over again in this series for the last 2 weeks because it's only lasted that long, but I've pointed this out every time, that the heart is usually not argued out of its wickedness. We don't normally hear, oh, I'm wrong? Oh, well, thank you for pointing that out. I better change. For the most part, when we hear, this is wrong, what we go is, yeah, who are you? And in fact, the human heart will do that even to God. Yeah? Who are you? I know who I am. Leave me alone. You don't get to tell me that. You don't get to say that what I'm doing is wrong. If you want to change a heart, for the most part, it takes a story. A story with values that are in it. A story with truths that are in it. A story from the heart of God. If we want our hearts to change, to become like His heart, it's not going to be our willpower. It's going to be His power. And it's going to be His power that grabs hold of our imagination. His story that jumps right past our tendency to argue. His story that jumps right and grabs hold of who we are down deep inside. And our hearts are changed and shaped by the wonder of the story of the Christ. And so it's no surprise that He comes telling stories, right? That He was born to be a storyteller and to tell the greatest life-changing stories. But as I've also pointed out each time, we should expect the stories to be a little weird. At least from our perspective. If they're supposed to change our hearts, then they shouldn't necessarily line up with the value system that our hearts come into by our birth as Americans, by our life in this world, by the value systems handed to us in this world. Because, folks, the values of heaven are different from the values of earth. At least the earth that we know. Well, there was a time when that wasn't so. Before the fall and before the breaking, earth was heaven. It was all the same. But that hasn't been that way for a long, unbearably long time. Long before you drew breath, the breaking of the earth was upon us. And the values that we have are, well, humanity loves itself, or rather each human loves itself. We are interned, we are broken, but it is not so in heaven. God is not a selfish God. He is a self-giving God. He is a wondrously loving God. And so these stories that come to us from far away, from a place so very different, call us to come home, to our heart's true home. And when we hear them, though we've grown up here and have adopted the values of here, we hear the echo, the wonder, the anthem of another country that is our true citizenship, the place where we really belong. And it's calling to us. And it is these stories that change us and fit us for that place that will one day come to take us home. That place invaded on the night of Christ's birth. Just for a moment. He came among us and brought with Him the hosts, the angels. We don't actually know what day of the year that was. Usually when I do a Christmas series, I've already pointed that out a couple of times. I have no idea when it was. They didn't tell us. And the fact that these shepherds are sitting outside at night, it's probably not December. But whenever it was the invasion of that other place. And for a moment, He came to such important people. Shepherds, who in their society are outsiders. The people that sleep outside and don't have homes. The people who have great influence, right? They stink. They don't have palaces. It's a weird group of people to go to if you have an important message that you want to get out. And especially a message that influences everybody, which is what the angel says, isn't it? I bring you great news of great joy that will be for all peoples. News so important that he couldn't just tell it alone. A crowd of them had to come, and they had to sing. And can you imagine what that chorus sounded like? Can you imagine the wonder of the people who normally don't sing to humans? They sing to the divinity. They sing of the glory of who He is and the wonder of who He is. But here they are singing on the earth to outsiders, to nobodies. Because it's going to be a song of great joy for all people? All people? Are you sure, angel? Are you sure it's good news? I mean, it's good news for me, because I'm a Christian, right? But this is, didn't He mean some people? God loves some of us. And we would never articulate it, but we have our list of people that God doesn't or can't love, right? Because we don't love them. People who have got their gender all messed up, their sexuality all messed up. Or people who are dishonest, or people who are terrorists. It's not for all people. It's for us. It's for me. And I get to look down on them still. Right? God wants to change our hearts, that we might become those who, like Him, love all people. Period. Are they breathing? Then I love them. That's how we're supposed. It's not who we are. That's not the humanity that we know. It's not the humanity I want to be. I don't even know that I want that. I want to be able to say I'm in and they're out. I want to feel safe by being able to draw those lines. I want to be protected. I want to be okay. I need to make sure that my soul's okay. And in my fallenness and in my brokenness, I'm looking out for number one. And the gospel comes to shatter that. And the chorus of heaven comes to say, no, this is for love for everybody. And those who will come to be a part of this will come to love all people. That's a weird story. But just to make sure that the point was driven home, he told an even weirder one. A strange, weird story. If you want to see it, it's in Luke chapter 15. It's a very familiar story, but it's a weird one. The most fabulous thing about this is that who this is told to and why and what it's supposed to do to us. How it's supposed to recast and reshape the value system. So often we tell the first 2/3 of it because we want to stop where the story's fun. Where the story comes with the invitation to me to come home and not deal with the mess of what homecoming looks like. I don't want to have to get the rebuke of it all. But if you look in Luke chapter 15, the story begins, now the tax collectors and the sinners were all drawing near to hear him. All people. You have to understand that is the unacceptable people. The people that we would draw the circle around and say, He loves us, not them. If they're in this group, no. The sinners are coming to hear him. And the Pharisees are scandalized. And the Pharisees and the scribes murmured, saying, This man receives sinners and eats with them. That's important. The context of this whole thing, this whole story that he's going to tell, is a dinner party where Jesus sits at table with unacceptable persons. He doesn't hold them off and say, I've got a meal for you here, but clean up. He sits down with them as they are, where they are. And the good religious folk, the folk like you and me, are scandalized by the distance of His love. That His love would reach that far. That it would include that broken of a person. And don't you know, if Jesus heard it enough to be able to argue with them, so did they. They heard what the people of our world too often hear from Christian churches. Not welcome. Not okay. I'm going to stand up for family values and rebuke your nastiness. I reject the ugliness of who you are, and I reject you along with it. Well, now, Jesus is not going to go and say, hey, yeah, absolutely, keep sinning. His word is always, neither do I condemn you, go and sin no more. His word is always an encouragement to come near to God, but it starts with Him coming near to them and loving them because they're people. The Pharisees, the good religious types, they just can't see it, and they go, man, this guy's disgusting. He looks like one of us, but he eats with them. So Jesus tells 3 stories. He tells about a lost coin. He tells about a lost sheep. And then he tells the story he really wants to tell. There was a man who had 2 sons. Now, if you're a good Jew and you hear that, there's a whole lot of context to that statement. Because you've got things like Ishmael and Isaac, Jacob and Esau. And then Jacob, who has a whole mess of them. But none of them like Joseph, do they? A family with a couple of sons in it has got a long history of trouble. The stories of their faith are stories of broken family, are stories of mess, are stories of one who is accepted and one who is rejected, are stories of violence among brothers. And so when you hear there is a man who had 2 sons, those people sitting at the table, oh man, this isn't going to go well. And they know exactly which one they are. I know I'm Esau. I'm Ishmael. I'm rejected. I'm on the outs. I'm not the favored son. Look at what they just said to me. Look at how they just treated me. They treated me like plague that he shouldn't have spent time with. And I know that's what they think. And frankly, I'm not sure they're wrong. Because I look at who I am. I'm not a success. I don't have it together. I'm a mess. But this guy, he's like me. Where's this story going to go? Because I'm the out son. I'm the son on the outs. That's what they're... And the folks on the outer ring condemning it all, well, they know which son they are too. They know that they're the favored son. They know by the cleanliness of their life and the purity of who they are and how their life is held together. While those lives have all collapsed and fallen apart, they know exactly where they are. There's a father who had 2 sons. And the younger of the 2 does exactly what screw-ups do. He messes it all up. Instead of loving the father and living with that father for as long as he had the father, because, all stories end with the father dying, right? He's not going to have him forever, but instead of cherishing family and cherishing this good, decent man, instead of that, he comes to him and he says, look, can we just act like you're dead already? Before you say a thing like that, you've already wandered, haven't you? His heart went prodigal long before he left home. This good, loving man says, fine, I divide what I have as it will be when I'm dead. And not long after that, the son sells everything. He takes his money and he heads off to a far-off, distant country. And which of us hasn't been there? It's why we love to tell this story. You can look into my life and I can see my wandering. And I know how it ends. I know it comes and he gets to come. So I get to identify with this guy, and I love that. People sitting around the table might not have loved it quite as much. Because, see, they've been there. They are identified as sinners, after all. So they know what it is to squander their lives in broken living. They know what it is to spend the money on wine, women, and song. They know what it is to burn through it and run out of it and find that they didn't actually have any friends after all. That all of their friends were really only there for what they could do and what they could give. They weren't there for them. And when they have nothing to do or give, the friends are gone. And so this good Jewish boy ends up feeding pigs. And these people around the table go, yeah, oh man, I've been there. I am there. That's me too, man. I know what it is to hurt like that. And maybe I haven't actually fed any pigs. I mean that's pretty bad because you can't even touch those things. You know, they're unclean. And the guy longs to eat what the pigs are eating. Yeah, I've done what I thought I would never do. I've hidden in my shame and thought no one could love me if they knew. I've been there, buddy. I know where you are. I know what it's like. Everyone at the table is going, ugh. And everyone standing at the outer rim goes, yeah, that's exactly right. Well told, Jesus. Good job. Give it to them. Tell them about their life brought low. Absolutely. Rebuke them and let them know that they're no better than pigs, because we all know it. Tell them. And then the kid comes to his senses, right? What am I doing here? In my Father's house, the slaves eat good food. The servants eat well. Why am I here when I could be there? But can't I go home? Will I be allowed to go home? If I go back there, how will they treat me? And this is the moment where every fork stops motion. And everyone sitting at that table goes, oh, kid, no. Don't do it. Don't go home. Because you think you're brought as low as you can get, but you're not. When you get back there, see, some of those people at the table have tried to go home. They wear the name sinner because they can't. They're not accepted at home anymore. There's people at home that don't pretend not to know their name, that have shut them off, that have not welcomed them. Oh, kid, don't do it. You think this is as bad as it can get? You haven't had the pain yet of having your brother call you one of those pigs. Stay where you are. You're better off. But the kid does the unthinkable. He gets up and he goes home. And while he's still a long way off, his father comes running to him and throws his arms around his neck. My son, my son. And he starts into his speech, Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. And that's as far as he gets. Stop that foolishness. You, quick, go get the ring. You go get the robe. You, go kill that calf. Get it rotating on the spit. We got a party. Because this son of mine, he was dead and he's alive again. He was lost and he's found. And don't you know, everyone around the table goes, what? That's not the way the story goes. You're getting it all wrong. The way the story goes is he goes home and his dad kills him. That's the way it goes. But no, this God that comes to us from so far away, from so different, comes to say, I still love you. I don't care what you've done. I don't care how you smell. I know the pig stink is still on you. Come home. That's why I will put you in fresh clothes. I love you. Wherever you've been and whatever you've done, whatever shame you've brought on my name, welcome home. You were dead and you're alive again. And you can come home. In church, hear the truth. Wherever you are, whatever you've done, whatever you're doing, You can come home. He will help you come home. When you turn towards Him, He takes over. He puts the robe on you. You don't go get the robe. He puts it on you. He starts the party going. He celebrates. He puts the ring on your finger. And He says, you were dead, but you're not anymore. You were lost, but you're not anymore. You're mine. Welcome home. And don't you know they dropped their forks? That's beautiful. That's my God? Oh, I want that. Oh, how I want that. The father had 2 sons. He's telling this story in part for the people sitting at the table, but he's also telling it for the people who are like us. The religious people who obey the rules. The people who go to the worship assemblies. The people who care about the law. The people who have not made a mess of their lives. Saying it to them too. Because the second son was out in the field. And as he approaches the house and he hears the noise, he runs into one of the servants and he says, "What's going on? This is not a festival. This is not a holiday. We're not supposed to be doing. What's going on? That sounds really great. That sounds like a lot of fun. What's happening?" And the servant says, "Your brother's come back." Whoa. And he did that? I am not going in there. No. I am not coming from the outer ring to join the table with the sinners and the tax collectors. Those are unacceptable people, and I will not sit down with you, Jesus, at this feast. It's not okay for you to eat with them. They are not acceptable, and I will not go into my brother who hurt us and shamed my dad. I'm not going in. And so the father comes out. You see, the thing is, this boy is in some ways further from the heart of that father who would give his stuff to his son and let him go. That kind of love and compassion, and who would welcome him back. This man's never traveled in miles, but he never got near that heart either. When the story comes from heaven, it's going to be strange. And it's going to convict our heart and it's going to break it. Especially we who are religious and likely to condemn and look down and to despise and say, "No, you clean up and maybe I'll let you be my servant. You can clean up my stalls and you can wash my floors and maybe you can tend my goats that I get to eat with my friends." His heart is alien to the Father. He's just as far away. And the father comes and he says, "Look, what are you doing out here? Come on." He says to him, "No, you never let me have a goat to celebrate with my friends. All this time I've been slaving for you. And you've never let me be selfish once. Just once. Couldn't I have celebrated with my friends? Couldn't I have been happy with? Couldn't I have done what I wanted to do? Couldn't I have had exactly his heart? But I was a coward and I couldn't run off and sin like he did. I had to obey you so that you would love me so I could get the inheritance. And this son of yours, not my brother, not this person that I'm supposed to love, not this person I'm supposed to care about. No, this son of yours. No brother of mine. This son of yours. This disgusting sinner. This useless person. When he shows up, you kill the fatted calf. Why didn't I get what I wanted? What about... And don't you know that around the room, there are people who are recognizing their hearts in that kid. It's why the story ends the way it does. The storyteller stopped before, you don't know. Did the father leave him there? Go back in? Did he get persuaded and come in? Well, that's up to them, isn't it? That's up to That's up to us, isn't it? How's the story end in your heart? Does it end with forgiving and selfless love? Does it end with you going home? Because He was born so that you could go home. He was born to take you home. But so many of us would rather stand out in the field. If that's what it takes, I don't want it. I don't want to love everybody. Are you kidding me? I want to be able to draw my line and say unacceptable. And He's saying, it's your brother. That's your brother. And yeah, they're a mess, and maybe they haven't come home yet. Maybe they never will. Not everybody wakes up when they get with the pigs. Some people die there. But it doesn't matter. It's your brother. And you've got to love them wherever they are. So don't stand on the hillside. Because the angels came to the hillside with good news for all people. All people. And who do I have to love? All people. The person who blew it and hurt you, all people. The person whose lifestyle is clearly out of line with God, all people. You love everyone. You are good to everyone because the gospel comes to tell us that the Father loves them all. And if we hate any of them, we've missed the message. If we carry hate in our hearts even for a moment, then we stand on a hillside and reject the very one we should say, I'm so glad to see you. I love you. And I'm glad that we have the same dad. Welcome home. The gospel comes as a call to you wherever you are. Are you with the pigs? Are you looking at the pods with envy? Have you secretly made such a mess of your life no one can know about it? And you're sitting there with the filth on your clothes, the uncleanness in your soul? Come home. You won't be a servant in that house. You'll be a kid. And you're welcome. You're loved. And you're wanted. So no matter how far you've wandered, He was born to tell you, you get to come home. And even more frightening, are you already at home, but your heart's not? Do you live here with a heart filled with values and natures that reject the very King that you live with? Come home. Don't hang on to that anymore. Don't be that broken man. Don't be that sinful woman. Don't hang on to your hates and your angers. They are doing you no good. Put them down. Come into the party. Celebrate and love and be alive. Because our God is love. And you are invited to do it too. Come home. If this morning you look into your life and you know, one way or another, your citizenship isn't up to snuff. It's not where it ought to be because your love isn't where it ought to be. Then welcome home. You can come back right now. And if you came to this place bearing burdens that you just can't carry anymore, you don't have to carry them alone. We'll help. God will help. We want to love you and pick you up, and we want to carry you. And if you're not a Christian this morning, there is no better way of life than hearing God's call, come home. If this morning you're subject to the invitation of Christ, why don't you come right now while we stand and sing?